This is your Daily 5 for Thursday, November 20th, 2025. Anyone who's listened to the show for a good amount of time has probably picked up over the years, because I've talked about this here and there, that when it comes to desktop operating systems or laptop, any operating system really, when it comes to the two dominant companies, which are basically Microsoft and Apple, I know Linux people love Linux, and I'm very happy Linux exists, but let's be honest, it's not a dominant OS, so I don't want people to get upset. I am thrilled that Linux exists, and to be honest, I might have to learn it sometime in the near future, because while I have been pretty neutral on the two operating systems, I've never bought into this idea that one is better than the other. I think that they both have their utilities for the people who need them to do what they need to do. I read an article over on The Verge that has me thinking that my time with Windows is probably going to be coming to an end if what they're saying here ends up going as far as I'm sure that it will. So the title of this particular article is Microsoft is turning Windows into an Agentic OS, starting with the taskbar. And I read that title and I thought, okay, well, maybe it's not as bad as this makes it sound. But reading through it, it sure sounds like it's as bad as that headline makes it sound like it's going to be. There's a quote in here which I will read from the Corporate Vice President of Windows Experiences. There's a title. And the quote is, "This is all about us wanting to make sure that every user can get the superpowers of AI." End quote. And this is part of what this article says is a bigger overhaul of the OS, where they basically want to put their AI Copilot product into everything. And you know that once they start doing that, and it's not like Windows hasn't already been on the degradation path for a while in terms of what they're doing to the OS, but once this is what they start doing, you can only imagine it just getting worse and worse and worse. And honestly, I have no interest. It's bad enough that Windows often prompts you to do things that you have to continually tell it you don't want to do. Now, don't get me wrong, Mac OS has its little peccadillos where it likes to tell me different things that I have to say no or yes to over and over and over. But at least in that case, it's almost always in at least the perceived interest of security, whereas Windows just wants you to do things that Microsoft wants you to do. And if this is where they think the future of Windows is, then for me, there's not much of a future left in Windows. And I don't like saying that because, again, on balance, I spend almost equal time in Windows and Mac OS, and I find that each of them has a benefit to me depending on what I'm doing. But if one of them is going to turn into an Agentic OS, which is just a lunatic phrase, so unless this is easily turned off, and based on what I've seen some people talking about trying to extricate Copilot as is and the problems that it can cause, and trying to disable some of the things that Microsoft wants you turned on and the headaches that it can bring about, I doubt they're going to make this all that easy to avoid. And honestly, I just have no interest in it. I'm not an anti-AI person, but I think that if you don't have a use for it, I don't think it should be presented to you. I don't need to be sold on what I need something for. If I have a need and I go out and look and I find something that's a solution, that's all the advocacy I need for that particular solution. And just the way this article reads, and I will link to it, of course, you read it, you tell me if I'm reading it wrong. This is obviously the beginning of them trying to get you to use these tools for everything that you do, which does at some point beg the question that, well, what do I even need a computer for? And what do I need an OS for if these tools that are already at least partially running on your cell phone can do all this stuff for you? But let's put that aside and just focus on the fact that if this is all, and maybe it will be, maybe I'm wrong, if all this is easily turned off and swept aside, okay, fine. You want to put tools in there as long as they do not degrade the system or interfere with just using it without them, then I really don't have an issue. But do any of us really have any faith that Microsoft is going to implement this vision? I mean, you could stop right there. Do we have any faith they'll implement this vision? But let's assume that they are. Do any of us who have used Windows for a while have any faith that they will implement this in a way where it will be easy to basically not use it if you don't want to? Just based on recent history with Microsoft, I seriously doubt it. And if this is something that they want to force me to use Windows, well, then the choice I'm going to make is to stop using Windows. And I won't be all that sad about it. Later.